Welcome back, everybody, to the RacePlazaMedia podcast. My name is Milan.
My name is Pia.
And today we're going to talk about F1 Academy. Nope.
We are going to talk about F1 Academy.
But first, we're going to talk about F1. Then we're going to talk about MotoGP. And then we're going to finish it off the episode with F1 Academy.
Yes, indeed.
And F1 this weekend was in Singapore.
Correct.
A street race, the longest race of the season. According to George. I didn't fact check him, but it sounds like he knows probably what he's talking about as a racer.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
But it was definitely the most physically taxing race of the season.
So far, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so also because they rearranged the beginning of the season, so that helps with the temperature. So I think Singapore is just like, it's just a hot, humid place, you know?
Yes, yeah.
And if you don't have that, you have rain.
Yeah, for sure.
And probably even more humidity.
Yeah, I don't think it would ever be super comfortable to race in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
nonetheless, yes.
Yeah, let's get into qualifying.
Yeah.
Or let's just talk about the race results. I don't think qualifying that much happened. Ferrari, of course, we all got delusional when Hamilton finished Q1 and P1. We're like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, no. But I mean, I think the one thing to say, of course, is that Russell ended up taking pole. Yeah. Max Verstappen in second. Russell had an excellent Q3. I mean, he was really
playing with fire, and it paid off.
Yeah, exactly. Piastri came in third. Then we had Antonelli, and then we had Norris ahead of both Ferraris, Hamilton, and then Leclerc. I think the big, not upset, but the, I guess, surprise was that both Williams ended up being disqualified.
Correct.
After qualifying, because they didn't pass the post-qualifying inspection. There was something wrong with their rear wing that wasn't approved, I guess, or wasn't according to regulations. So they ended up being disqualified. Albon ended up starting then from the pits, I believe, and as well as Gasly.
Correct. Yeah, Gasly had a really tough weekend where his teammate actually started in 13th. Franco. Yeah.
Well, no, he started in 16th.
Oh, then he had a great start and he moved up to 13th.
Yes,
then.
Yeah,
he ended good start by him then.
Yeah.
Because they fumbled that for him.
Yeah, but race. Overall, the race was...
It was like last year Singapore. I don't think Singapore last year was really exciting. I think the most exciting race we had, which was 3 years ago, where Sainz obviously did the best thing anyone could ever do.
Oh, yeah.
Giving, his opponent, Lando, purposely DRS to keep the Mercedes behind.
Yes.
Then, George obviously crashing and then Lewis taking that P3. But didn't have nearly anything like that in this race.
Yes.
There was a little bit of overtaking. I think the first thing really dramatic that happened was, of course, Lando overtaking Oscar.
Well, not just overtaking Oscar, but then also... They had contact. First, he had contact with Max, and then that, in a way, catapulted him or pushed him into Oscar. Oscar barely escaped the wall during the contact, and of course, that caused a lot of uproar. Piastri was quite upset about it over the radio. He was quite vocal about it as well, asking the team what they're going to do about it. And then they ended up not doing anything about it, and I think that's going to be the big... hot topic of the week, or at least on Reddit, on socials. Everybody's gonna talk about it. I think you had put it nicely when we were watching the race, that you said that is essentially the Pandora's box that McLaren had opened by making all these other team calls earlier in the year. The same thing, I think, or the big mistake was the Monza call when they had Oscar give back Lando the position because of the pit stop. But that was not I think that was really when it really went too far with the team calls in my opinion. And then because I don't think obviously Lando crashed or touched Oscar on purpose, but I feel like if you make decisions like that early on, it does have an impact now. But I think now the gloves are off. Not in an extreme way, but I think Oscar is not going to give any concessions anymore moving forward.
I don't think he should. I think it is very much opening Pandora's box. I think I would go even. So the thing about it is, it's like these fucking papaya rules. Like I think last time I already talked about it, and I'm so over it.
Yeah.
But it's this thing like, it is also very interesting. so in Monza, you had the thing where Lando had a bad pit stop. And if you think about it, Lando has been out of the, what is it now, 7 or 8 bad pit stops. He had 5 of them and 3
He
of
has
them.
majority of them, yeah.
He has majority of them. That is unfortunately just how, unfortunately, sometimes you just get unlucky.
Yeah.
Piastri had a long pit stop or bad pit stop this race.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, you're saying, well, it's not Lando's fault, right? That that he had a slow pit stop and he lost the position, which is true.
Yes.
However, then you could push it so far and be like, well, in Silverstone, Piastri got a penalty that we can all agree on.
Yeah, was wrong.
But and he asked, of course, out of desperation a little bit, to be like, hey, are we switching positions? Of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, then in Monza, you're punishing him for something that wasn't his fault either. But you could say like, well, it is within the team. And while I very much think that Lando did the right thing, you're racing wheel to wheel and it is very much a racing incident, but there is contact between 2 teammates, right? And
also Oscar did point it out on the radio. He was like, so he had the option to hit one or the other, and he ended up not choosing his teammate. Obviously, Oscar hadn't seen the reviews or the playbacks at that point, but he didn't have to push as far so that he would bump into Oscar. But then, like I said, I am not faulting Lando for this. I am faulting it's the team decisions that have been made over the season, causing this now a little bit, or causing also just this whole discourse online about it. It shouldn't be a discussion, the team shouldn't have this much impact on, and it's now getting to the point where it does impact the rider significantly more, because this driver championship will go down to points. Like, obviously, it always goes down to the points, but it's going to be close, I think. So, and then the Monza decision, the Silverstone decision, all of that could potentially negatively impact Oscar. And of course, I'm an Oscar fan, so I'm a little bit more upset about it. But like I said, I'm more upset about the team.
Yeah, it's just, it is now, and people are gonna, and in this case, I will agree. It's like, well, he did this thing that is not very team.
Yeah.
Like, and the whole time you've been pushing it,
team, yeah.
And then during the race, the excuse is like, well, we want to clinch the constructors championship, which of course it's important, but did anyone really think that McLaren wasn't going to win it at this point?
No.
Yeah. You're up by so many points. Like, what are you doing for the last couple of races? Of course, the sooner you clinch it, the better, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It is just, it's this thing, like, you started this like this, and then and then I think we all knew this was eventually going to come to this.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
We'll see how it's going to work next race.
Yeah, I mean, there's 6 more races, I think, to go. So we'll see how much McLaren will mingle in their drivers' races.
Because now it's technically gloves off. Now
it's not about a constructor championship anymore.
Now it doesn't matter what they do. If they crash out for the rest of the season, it doesn't matter to the team technically. Of course, they want to also win the drivers' championship, but it's I
mean, and there's still a danger from Max.
Yeah, I think containing the Max threat is probably then the biggest thing.
Yes.
Because he also had a very difficult weekend, even though he started in second and he finished in second.
Yes.
His race was very, very difficult. He reported he had a lot of issues with up and down shifting.
Yeah, especially with downshifting, he said. There was also his balance was off. He had some issues with the rear brakes. So he was struggling with a bunch of different things this weekend.
And sometimes, and I cannot say because I've never watched a lot of Max's races from his point of view, but at least the messages that they showed on broadcast this time around, a lot of them seemed like genuinely like, yo guys, I need help from you from the pit boxes.
I feel like the earlier ones, like this fucking car, it's undrivable, blah 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 blah, like the typical kind of Max messages. But I do remember one distinctly where he's like, guys, I can't drive this, please. He literally said, please help me. And I was like, oh wow, this coming from Max, because he was battling with Norris, and Norris was constantly like a second halfway, or even in DRS. So he was constantly fighting with this quote unquote undrivable car. So he was literally pleading them to help him. And then they gave him some instructions of how to change some of the settings, which seemed visually as they were helping because he was able to gain some advantage from that.
And
but
I think also the hard tire compound helped,
Yes.
was better for him than
Yes.
the softs that he started on.
Yeah.
I will say also, I don't know if Max ever says that during the races, because once again, we just never see them. Obviously,
of
they will
course.
always pick the ones that are most insane, and I
Yes.
think there's only one
Most
person.
entertaining.
Most entertaining, not insane, but I think there's one other person who had really wild messages.
Who earned the trophy of the race.
The hero of the race. But before we get into that a second, I wanted to point out also that McLaren's terrible attempt at trying to eke out Red Bull. So essentially, it was all about the pitting window, right? Eventually, Max was on the first.
Yes.
Because he was obviously on the soft, and Lando was.
I didn't realize. Sorry, what you were saying. But now, okay, yes.
Was on a medium tire, and essentially he closed up the gap to Max to potentially undercut him.
Yes.
And then at the beginning of the
lap, which is like a 1 minute 30 to 40 minute lap.
Yeah.
I think at that point it was more like a minute and 35, 36 second lap. So
Yes.
it's a longer lap.
They were like, hey, a pit or box to overtake Max, right? And then, of course, all of the McLaren people came outside, and then Max just stayed outside. And then, guess what? Around the corner,
Stay out.
Don't come inside. Yeah, like it was so badly called.
Yes,
It wasn't even like even the commentator when they said it, I was like, when we heard the message, I was like. This seems very soon. This seems like definitely try to get like, hey, we're gonna do this to push you into pitting.
But it's also because we get the messages even later, so it must have come even earlier.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, it was just such a poor bluff.
Yeah, it
like
was
they could have done it so much better. They could have called it mid lap or a little bit before to like. Freak out,
or maybe
know?
You do it the other way around. So you would say instead of like box to overtake, overtake. So please box or something like that. So Lando knows this is not our words. For pitting.
No, of course.
You know?
I'm sure they have like.
But this was so poorly staged. It was honestly hilarious.
It was laughable.
It was laughable because
everybody caught on.
Yeah,
and it's like
even the commentators pointed out to it was like this seems ridiculously early.
Yes.
It was a terrible bluff.
Yeah, it was not
didn't
like
work out.
Yeah, no. But the entertainer of the race was Fernando Alonso.
Yeah,
he had
was the hero of the race.
He said it himself on the radio. He earned the trophy for the hero of the race. He was also quite emotional and upset over the radio because there was some like upsetting moments. He had like a really long pit stop again.
9.7 seconds or something like that.
Like it was absolutely ridiculous. Then he got upset with his engineer because apparently his engineer, or it seemed like the engineer was constantly talking to him. So Alonso was like, "Oh, if you keep talking to me every lap, I'm gonna disconnect the radio."
I think the succession of those radio messages was that Fernando had a really great race. He was in he was in 8th place behind Lewis, but there was a huge gap between them. And he was not really backing up, but there was definitely a speed difference between 1 through 7. And then everything behind. But he jumped, I think, 2 positions at the start, was in 8th then, pitted, had this really, really long pit. And I think his race engineer came on to tell him, hey, 34 laps on the hard tire. Or medium tire, medium tire. And Fernando already probably being fucked off. It's like, don't talk to me again. If you talk to me every lap, I'm gonna disconnect
the radio.
And then he did the 2 overtakes, or at least 1 overtake, because he was like, well, now I have to put in the work again to gain back that position, because they're also still in constructors championship fight. And then he's like, hero of the day. I'm the hero of the day.
And then I don't know if you heard this, but then at the end he was quite livid on the radio too, understandably, just because at the end Lewis Hamilton was having issues with the brakes, or brakes were not really usable, which was quite dangerous, which also caused Hamilton then to get a penalty, of course.
He didn't get a penalty for that.
No,
he got a penalty for cutting the track.
Oh, but it was caused by the brake issues.
Yes, so he was essentially cutting the corners, and then his race engineer even said, because I listened to his last laps, and it was essentially Lewis with 2.5 laps to go. He lost his brakes. Essentially, they weren't working anymore, so he could really,
which is insane.
He could accelerate, and then he was, I think, a lot of time using the downshifting to brake, and so he was losing a lot of time, and then sometimes to make the corners, he would have to cut them. And based on regulations, he was exceeding the tracks limits, and this was not considered a sufficient reason to cut, because the sufficient reason would be avoiding like an accident or something like that. But if your brake's not working, then they're like, well, you should be going into the pits.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. And that was one of Alonso's argument also, was just like that this was really dangerous because he was coming up behind. I mean, we were watching the times go down. He was getting close because there was a moment right at the end where Hamilton couldn't brake, but Alonso was coming behind.
Well, this wasn't a final straight, so I don't exactly understand why he was so mad about it.
No, his came right before the last left turn.
No, because I watched it and it didn't look nearly as bad, to me at least.
I'm just saying what I had seen, and it seemed like it was going into, I think it was the last left-hand turn. Alonso was complaining about Lewis Hamilton.
Well, it's the last left-hand turn, but then Lewis made it past, and then Alonso like raced by it. But I'm like, well, dude, you knew that he was slow.
Yeah.
So I'm uncertain what the
all I'm saying is
about.
that Alonso was very livid then and entertaining then again on the radio. I mean, it was just not a lot to really watch.
Yeah. I mean, this is really like we saw replays of the same
things over and over again. I mean, we saw the Norris Piastri incident over and over again.
Yeah.
They showed
many
the start.
Angles. We saw it from 5 different cockpits.
Yes.
It was just it was a boring race.
I mean, congratulations to Russell.
Yeah,
he ended up
winning.
I mean, he just drove by himself, essentially. There was some close calls, or not close calls, but a little bit of battling between Max and Norris. Not that much, really. But yeah, so it was a little bit of a boring race. I'm looking forward to the next race. We do have another week off.
This is Coda.
And then they're coming to the US again, to Austin. Oscar Piastri is currently still leading the driver championships with 336 points, ahead of Lando Norris with 314 points, so 22 points ahead right now. And Max Verstappen is third with 273 points. So any of those three are really in contention still for the driver championships. So it's going to be interesting moving forward.
Because we also have 3 more sprint races, is it? Or 2 more sprint races? I think it's 6 races and 3 sprints.
I think so, yeah. And then obviously the Red Bull seems to be in better shape now again.
I think, as far as I'm understanding, is that the Red Bull has never been slow. It is just hard to get into that perfect window.
Yes.
And then, of course, I mean, there seems to be some mechanical issues with the upshifting and downshifting, because it's not the first time Max had issues with that. But there's 3 things I actually wanted to really point out real quick before we wrap this up, because there's not that much more to say about it. Huge shout out to Carlos Sainz for coming 10th and getting that last point from starting in 18th?
18th, yes.
Something like that. Yeah. So really, really fantastic. Also really great by the Williams teams. They put him, I think he was out on the original, I think, medium tire for forever. And then they put him on a soft, and it really made a huge difference. So great job by them. 2, Lewis actually was on track to get potentially maybe P5 when they put him on that soft tire at the end, because Lewis is the only person I think who did a 2-stop, because he had essentially a free stop or 2 free stops behind him, because he was up almost 50 seconds. And if he would have not lost the tire for that, and then
if he wouldn't have lost the brakes, he would have
the brakes. I mean, and then I think the last thing I just wanted to say is, of course, rest in peace, the good Roscoe. Lewis lost his dog this past weekend. Big star of the F1 movie, if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
He actually has 2 scenes in it.
Which,
So yeah, rest in peace for that. Really tough week, I'm sure, for Lewis.
Yes.
Because we also know that Lewis doesn't have any, kids or wife and children. So that is like, he said he was his best friend and his closest friend. So, and we all know Roscoe, been around for many years.
Yes.
So yeah, really sad news.
Yeah, very sad news. Yeah, I didn't expect you to bring it up, to be honest. I didn't think about it.
Oh,
yeah, which I mean, it makes sense. And when you were leading into it, I was like, who else? Who died? And I was like, oh yeah, Roscoe. It was really sad because we saw it on social media that he was posting that he was in the hospital, Roscoe, and then Lewis couldn't attend a Ferrari.
They were supposed to test like a run Pirelli tires.
Well, that, and then there was also a special Ferrari runway that he was supposed to participate in or be there for, so he couldn't, or he decided not to go, of course, because he was there in the hospital with Roscoe, and then he was in a coma, and then they put him down. It's just so heartbreaking. I can't imagine. I mean, I've never, luckily, thankfully, had to, knock on wood, go through it.
Yeah.
And then you immediately right back to work, which can be good or bad.
Yeah,
it can be a distraction.
In my delusion, I was like, ooh, maybe he's gonna be able to just rule it, but not in this Ferrari, because I know, is it Charles that 2 times where someone in his life passed away, he went and won the race after. In one of the races, he went from last to first. So this can be sometimes like a great motivator or a distractor also. But of course,
which, I mean, Lewis was on track for a decent race. He was going to
potentially gotten P5, right? Because he was close to Kimi.
And he was making up a lot of time on the soft tires. But then with the last, I think, like 4 laps to go, that's when the brake issues...
2.5.
Or 2.5 laps to go. Those brake issues started. And you could just see the times.
Yeah.
Just like, first we thought, oh, he's just giving Leclerc the position back because he's not going to get past Antonelli.
Technically he didn't have to.
No, I didn't think so, but I was like, oh, I guess. I mean, there's nothing to lose with those 2 positions.
I was like, making it maybe up from Baku, where he too late tried to give back the position, or they too late told him as well.
No, that makes sense. But I was like, oh, I guess so. But then the time just kept, because Alonso was like 30 seconds back, I think, at the beginning.
No, it was like...
Was it more than that?
It was like at least 45 seconds.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because it was like another pit stop, essentially. Or more than another pit stop.
Almost 2 pit stops, yeah.
Yeah, so then the time just went going down. I was like, oh, man, that's going to be an issue. But then they also didn't show it.
No, they didn't show it at all.
Because, of course, that was the time when Russell had crossed the finish line, or some of the racers were already done, because there was quite a gap between many of them. But anyways, it was
a really underwhelming race
weekend.
Yeah.
But